Finn Carter wiped grease from his hands onto his worn work apron and surveyed the cluttered repair bay. Nexus Station hummed with the constant drone of life support systems and the distant chatter of 100 alien species conducting their daily business. His small workshop sat tucked between a spice merchant and a data broker, unremarkable and easy to miss. That was exactly how Finn liked it. He had been fixing broken equipment for 3 years on this remote trading station. The work was steady, the pay decent, and nobody asked too many questions about why a human had chosen to set up shop so far from Earth core systems. Finn appreciated the simplicity. People brought him broken things, he made them work again, and everyone went home satisfied. The morning had been typical. He had repaired a faulty translator unit for an insectoid trader, replaced the power core in a handheld scanner, and was currently wrestling with a stubborn gravity regulator that refused to calibrate properly. His tools lay spread across the scarred metal workbench, each one precisely placed within easy reach. The sound reached him during a quiet moment between hammer strikes. It was soft, almost musical, like wind chimes mixed with a whimper. Finn looked up from his work and felt his breath catch. Standing in the doorway of his shop was a creature straight out of ancient Earth legends. No larger than a terrier, it had scales that shimmered with colors that seemed to shift between purple and silver in the station's artificial lighting. Delicate wings, almost translucent, were folded against its small body. Forelegs ended in tiny claws that clicked softly on the metal floor, and a long tail dragged behind it. But what struck Finn most were the eyes. Large and luminous, they were the color of molten amber, and they were filled with tears. The small dragon made that chiming whimper again and stumbled forward on unsteady legs. In its front claws, held carefully against its chest, was something that caught the light, a sphere made of what looked like crystal and precious metals, except it was broken. Deep cracks, spider, webbed across its surface, and pieces of the intricate mechanism inside hung loose. Finn set down his tools carefully and crouched, making himself smaller and less threatening. He had worked with enough alien species to know that body language mattered, sometimes more than words. "Hey there, little friend," he said softly. "What happened?" The dragon hatchling, because that was clearly what it was, made a series of chirping sounds that reminded Finn of birdsong mixed with bells. It held up the broken sphere toward him, and another tear rolled down its snout. Finn had never seen a dragon before. They were rare, powerful beings that kept to their own territories far from the common trade routes. Most people went their entire lives without encountering one. Yet here was a dragon child, standing in his workshop, asking for help the only way it could. He glanced toward the corridor outside his shop. Several aliens who had been passing by were now moving in the opposite direction with unusual speed. The Antrian merchant across the way was suddenly very interested in the inside of his own stall, refusing to look in Finn's direction. Strange, but the crying hatchling in front of him seemed more important than neighborhood politics. "Okay, let me take a look," Finn said gently. He pulled over a cushioned stool meant for customers and patted it. The dragon hatchling climbed up with obvious effort, its wings drooping sadly as it settled. Finn took the broken sphere carefully. It was heavier than it looked and warm to the touch. The craftsmanship was extraordinary. Whoever had made this was an artist as much as an engineer. Crystal panels were interlaced with metals he could not identify, and inside he could see circuitry that resembled frozen lightning, beautiful and complex. The damage was severe. Whatever had happened, the sphere had taken a hard impact. Multiple internal connections were severed, and the crystal housing was cracked in at least 4 places. This was not going to be a quick fix. "This is really special, is not it?" Finn said, more to himself than to the hatchling. The dragon chirped softly, watching him with those enormous amber eyes. Finn had never worked on dragon technology before. He had no manuals, no references, no idea what half of these components were supposed to do. But he understood the fundamentals of how things worked. Energy needed paths to flow through. Structures needed support. Broken pieces needed to be rejoined. He looked at the hatchling, at its hopeful, tear-stained face, and made his decision. "I'm going to try to fix this," he said firmly. It might take me a while, and I cannot promise it will work perfectly, but I will do my best. Can you be patient with me?" The dragon hatchling nodded solemnly, its small body straightening with something that looked like hope. Finn cleared his main workbench, setting aside the gravity regulator. This repair deserved his complete attention. He positioned his magnification lamp, selected his finest tools, and began the delicate process of opening the cracked crystal housing. As he worked, Finn talked quietly, explaining what he was doing. "See, these connections here are like tiny roads where energy travels. When they break, the energy cannot get where it needs to go. So we need to build new roads or repair the old ones." The hatchling leaned forward, fascinated despite its sadness. Its tears had stopped, replaced by intense curiosity. Finn discovered that the sphere was more than just a device. It was a stasis field generator combined with some kind of holographic projector, but the technology was far more advanced than anything humans had developed. The circuit pathways followed patterns that seemed almost organic, growing and branching like tree roots rather than following geometric logic. Where connections were severed, Finn carefully soldered new links using wire from his supply cabinet. He had to adjust the thickness and composition, testing each connection multiple times to ensure proper energy flow. For crystal components too damaged to save, he improvised. A shard from a broken quantum calculator had similar properties. He carefully ground it down and fitted it into place with adhesive designed for high-stress applications. 2 hours passed. The hatchling remained on its stool, absolutely still except for its eyes, which followed every movement of Finn's hands. At one point, Finn needed better lighting in a deep recess of the device. Without being asked, the small dragon leaned close and opened its mouth slightly. A soft, warm glow emanated from within, illuminating exactly where Finn needed to see. "Thank you," Finn said, surprised and touched. "You are a good assistant." The hatchling made a pleased chirping sound. Finally, after countless small adjustments and one complete redesign of a power distribution node, Finn sealed the crystal housing. He had used a polymer compound to hold the cracks together, creating a delicate web of reinforcement that was visible but did not detract from the sphere's beauty. If anything, the repair lines caught the light in interesting ways like gold veining in marble. Finn held his breath and pressed the activation point on the base of the sphere. Nothing happened for 3 long heartbeats. Then the sphere hummed to life. It lifted gently from Finn's palm, rotating slowly in the air. Light began to emanate from within, soft at first, then growing stronger. Suddenly, the entire workshop was filled with stars. Not simple points of light, but 3-dimensional constellations that hung in the air, complete with nebulas, distant galaxies, and what looked like planetary systems. The display was breathtaking. The dragon hatchling's reaction was immediate and joyful. It made a sound like crystal bells ringing and launched itself from the stool. The sphere drifted down into its waiting claws, and the small dragon hugged it close while making happy chirping sounds that filled the workshop with music. Then, still clutching its repaired treasure, the hatchling turned and tried to hug Finn's entire arm. Its scales were warm and surprisingly soft, and Finn could feel a faint vibration, almost like purring. "You are very welcome," Finn said, his voice rough with emotion he had not expected to feel. "Take good care of it, all right?" The dragon hatchling nodded vigorously. It hopped down from the workbench, the sphere floating alongside it now, and made its way to the door. At the threshold, it stopped and looked back. Those amber eyes met Finn's one more time. The hatchling chirped something that sounded like a thank you in a language Finn would never speak, then disappeared into the crowded corridor. Finn stood alone in his workshop, surrounded by the fading afterimages of projected stars. His back ached from hunching over the delicate work, and his eyes felt strained. He rolled his shoulders, returned to his workbench, and picked up the gravity regulator he had been working on before. Just another repair job, he told himself. Just another day. But outside his shop, hidden in the shadows near a cargo access point, a massive dragon with scales the color of burnished copper watched through a monitoring device. This dragon was fully grown, easily 15 feet long from snout to tail tip, with wings that could span twice that when extended. Golden patterns marked its scales, denoting rank and status among dragonkind. It had watched everything, every moment of the interaction, every gentle word, every careful repair. The adult dragon deactivated the monitoring device and turned away, its claws making no sound despite its size. There was much to report, and quickly. The queen needed to know what had transpired. 3 days passed before Finn understood that something had changed on Nexus Station. The shift was subtle at first, easy to dismiss as coincidence. The Antrian merchant who usually greeted him each morning now avoided eye contact. The insectoid trader who brought him regular work suddenly found reasons to visit a different repair shop. Even the station's maintenance crew seemed nervous when they passed his workshop. Finn tried to ignore it. He had repairs to complete, bills to pay, and a business to maintain. Whatever social dynamics were shifting around him felt less important than the steady rhythm of his work. On the fourth morning, he arrived at his workshop to find a crowd gathered outside. Not customers waiting for service, but onlookers keeping a respectful distance. They parted silently as Finn approached, their expressions ranging from awe to apprehension. Standing directly in front of his sealed door were 6 dragons. Finn's heart stuttered. These were not small hatchlings. These were adults, each one massive and magnificent. Their scales gleamed like polished gemstones under the station's lights, displaying colors Finn had no names for. Some stood on 4 legs, others had reared up to rest on their haunches, and all of them watched him with eyes that held ancient intelligence. The largest dragon, with scales that shifted between copper and bronze, stepped forward. When it spoke, its voice resonated through the corridor like distant thunder. "You are Finn Carter, the repair technician." It was not a question. Finn's mouth had gone completely dry. He managed a nod. "I am High Sentinel Karath of the Dragon Sovereignty. We must speak with you regarding events that occurred 4 days ago. May we enter your workshop?" What could Finn possibly say? He unlocked the door with hands that trembled slightly. The 6 dragons entered his small shop, and suddenly the space that had always felt adequate seemed impossibly cramped. They had to fold their wings tight and arrange themselves carefully to avoid knocking over equipment. Behind them, Station Administrator Thompson tried to follow, his face pale with nervous excitement. Karath turned his massive head and fixed the administrator with a golden stare. Thompson stopped as if he had hit a physical barrier. The door slid shut. Finn stood behind his workbench, using it as a psychological shield more than anything else. 6 pairs of dragon eyes focused on him with an intensity that made his skin prickle. "Do you understand who you helped 4 days ago?" Karath asked. "A dragon hatchling," Finn said, finding his voice. "A child with a broken toy that meant something to them. That child was Princess Vessa, youngest daughter of Queen Surta, supreme ruler of the dragon sovereignty and guardian of the eternal flames." The room tilted slightly. Finn gripped the workbench harder. "I did not know," he managed. "She was just crying. The sphere was broken. I thought I could help." A dragon with scales like polished silver spoke next, her voice carrying a musical quality. "I am Wing Commander Telera, head of the Royal Security Detail. Princess Vessa slipped away from our ship during a diplomatic refueling stop. She was gone for only 17 minutes before I located her, but in that time, she found your workshop. I positioned myself where I could observe the entire interaction." Karath continued. "I watched through Commander Tellera's visual feed. I saw everything. How you treated the princess, how you approached the repair, how you included her in the process and explained your work. The sphere you repaired," said another dragon with emerald scales, "is called the Birth Star Orb. It projects the exact stellar configuration visible from our homeworld Pyralis on the night each royal hatchling emerges from their egg. Princess Vessa's orb has been in the royal family for 8 generations. It is irreplaceable." Finn felt sick. If I had known it was that important, I would have been more careful. I did my best, but I'm just a repair tech with basic tools. I have no formal training in dragon technology or cultural artifacts. If I damaged it further, I am so sorry. "You misunderstand," Karath said, and something in his tone made Finn look up. The repair was flawless. The orb functions exactly as it was designed to. The projection quality may actually be improved. Princess Vesa has not been separated from it since she returned to our ship. Relief washed through Finn, followed immediately by deeper confusion. Then why are you here? Commander Tellera moved closer, her silver scales catching the light. We are here because of how you treated our princess. You did not recognize her species or status at first, correct? No, Finn admitted. I mean, I knew she was a dragon, but I had never met one before. I did not know she was royalty. Exactly, Kara said. You saw only a distressed child. You offered comfort immediately. You spoke with kindness. You took time to explain your work to her. You asked nothing in return, though you must have recognized the sphere's value. Another dragon, older than the others with scales that had faded to a pale gold, spoke for the first time. His voice was rough with age, but carried undeniable authority. I am Elder Skorath, keeper of cultural traditions. In dragon society, how an individual treats hatchlings reveals their fundamental character. This belief is foundational to our civilization, unchanged for 12,000 years. Korath nodded. Humanity is young. Your species has been spacefaring for only 600 years. Many of the elder races view humans as impulsive, aggressive, and unworthy of standing among established galactic powers. The dragon's sovereignty has remained neutral on this question, watching and waiting. Your actions have provided clarity, Elder Skorath continued. You demonstrated compassion without expectation of reward. You applied creativity and determination to solve a problem completely outside your experience. You treated a royal hatchling with the same care you would give any child. These qualities speak to the potential of your entire species. Finn's head was spinning. I still do not understand why you are telling me this. Karatha's expression shifted in a way Finn was learning to recognize as a dragon smile, displaying rows of sharp teeth that should have been terrifying but somehow were not. Because the dragon's sovereignty wishes to understand humanity more deeply, we propose a cultural exchange. We want you to come to Pyralis as a technical consultant and human representative. What? No. The words came out automatically. I'm not a diplomat. I did not know anything about politics or formal protocols. I just fixed broken equipment. Precisely, Elder Skorath said. Diplomats perform. They present carefully crafted images designed to manipulate perception. But you, Finn Carter, acted according to your nature. That authenticity is what we seek. Not humanity's diplomatic facade, but who you actually are. Commander Tellera added, you would establish a workshop in the Crystal Palace. Dragons would bring you items needing repair. Through these interactions, through working alongside you and observing your methods, we would gain genuine insight into human thinking and problem solving. Finn looked around his small shop. This cramped space had been his entire world for 3 years. It was safe, predictable, and entirely his own. The thought of leaving it, of traveling to an alien homeworld to represent his entire species, was terrifying. But he thought of Princess Vesa, of her tears, and then her joy. If something as simple as fixing a broken toy could help bridge the gap between humans and dragons, could help his species earn respect among the ancient races, how could he refuse? Can I think about it? He asked quietly. Korath inclined his massive head. You have until tomorrow at this same hour. We will return for your answer. The 6 dragons departed as smoothly as they had arrived, somehow managing to navigate through the doorway and down the corridor without disturbing anything. The crowd that had gathered outside scattered quickly. Finn stood alone in his workshop, surrounded by half-finished repairs and the familiar smell of solder and machine oil. His entire life had just been turned upside down by a single act of kindness. That night, Finn could not sleep. He lay in his tiny station quarters, staring at the ceiling while his mind explored every possible future. By the time artificial dawn lighting began filtering through his window, he had made his decision. When Karoth returned the next morning with his delegation, Finn was waiting outside his workshop, wearing his cleanest work clothes and carrying a duffel bag. I will do it, Finn said before anyone could speak. But I have conditions. Karoth's eyes gleamed with what might have been approval. State them. I keep doing what I do, fixing things. I am not going to stand in throne rooms, making speeches, or attending formal ceremonies. If you want to understand humans, you get the real version. Me working with my hands, solving problems the way I actually solve them. That is the deal. For a long moment, there was silence. Then Karatha's lips pulled back in that sharp, toothed smile. Agreed. The queen suspected you might say something exactly like this. She has already prepared appropriate workshop space. Gather what you need. We depart within the hour. The next hour was chaos. Finn sold his shop lease back to the station administration for a fair price. He packed his most essential tools, knowing the dragons had promised to provide whatever else he might need. His neighbor, an elderly human woman named Mrs. Patterson who sold imported earth foods, cried when he said goodbye and made him promise to send messages. Then he was boarding a dragon ship, and everything he thought he understood about spacecraft design became irrelevant. The vessel was not built, it was grown. Organic materials merged seamlessly with crystalline technology and metallic components. The interior spaces felt alive, responding to the presence of the dragons with subtle shifts in lighting and temperature. The journey to Pyralis took 6 days. The ship moved through space using methods Finn could not begin to understand. When he asked Commander Tellera to explain, she said their drives operated on principles that combined physics, biology, and what humans might call magic, though dragons considered it simply another form of science. Finn spent the journey in his assigned quarters, which were larger than his entire station apartment had been. He practiced working with dragon tools, studied language guides, and tried to prepare himself for whatever came next. On the 6th day, Karath came to his quarters. We are approaching Pyralis. You should see this. Finn followed the High Sentinel to an observation chamber. When he looked out through the transparent wall, he forgot how to breathe. Pyralis was beautiful in a way that made his eyes sting with tears. Mountain ranges taller than anything on Earth pierced through layers of clouds that glowed with sunset colors. Cities of crystal and precious metals spread across valleys and plateaus, catching the light of twin suns and refracting it into rainbow brilliance. And everywhere, dragons flew, hundreds of them, thousands, their wings catching the light as they moved between towering spires and vast gardens. "This is your home," Finn whispered. "For the next year, it will be yours as well," Karath replied. "Welcome to Pyralis, Finn Carter. Welcome to the beginning of a new chapter for both our species." The Crystal Palace was not actually made of crystal, Finn learned quickly. It was constructed from something called starstone, a material that appeared crystalline but possessed properties that shifted between solid, liquid, and energy states depending on specific conditions. The walls seemed to breathe with inner light, and walking through the corridors felt like moving inside a living gemstone. Finn's quarters were located in what dragons called the artisan wing, where craftspeople and creators traditionally lived and worked. His rooms overlooked gardens filled with plants that existed nowhere else in the galaxy, cultivated by dragons over millennia. Some of the flowers sang in ultrasonic frequencies. Others released pollen that formed geometric patterns in the air. The workshop space attached to his quarters was 3 times the size of his entire station shop had been. The dragons had studied records of human workspace design and created something that blended the best of both species' approaches. Human-style workbenches and tool storage combined with dragon architectural aesthetics. Lighting could be adjusted with thought alone. Environmental controls responded to his needs before he consciously recognized them. Will this suffice? Elder Skorath had asked when showing Finn the space. Finn had been too overwhelmed to speak. He simply nodded. The first day, Finn unpacked his tools and organized the workspace. The familiar rhythm of arranging equipment helped calm his nerves. By evening, his workbench looked almost like home, human tools laid out with careful precision against a backdrop of alien magnificence. His first customer arrived the next morning. A young dragon with scales that graduated from deep blue at his snout to pale aquamarine at his tail tip brought in a damaged data storage device. The dragon introduced himself as Scholar Varix, a researcher studying ancient texts. High Sentinel Karath said you could repair things. Varix said, his tone skeptical. This device contains irreplaceable research. Can a human truly work with dragon technology? Finn took the device and examined it carefully. The damage was straightforward, a cracked connection interface, and corrupted power regulation. I can fix this, he said confidently. It will take about an hour. You're welcome to watch if you like. Varix settled on a cushion designed for dragon anatomy and observed in silence. Finn worked steadily, narrating his process. The interface here uses a different protocol than human devices, but the fundamental problem is the same. Energy cannot flow properly through the damaged pathways. So we need to create new pathways or repair the old ones. As he worked, Finn noticed Varix leaning forward with growing interest. When Finn used a human-designed tool in an unconventional way to access a tight space, the dragon made a thoughtful humming sound. You approach problems differently than our technicians would, Varix observed. More directly, less concerned with traditional methods. I learned repair work in practical settings, Finn explained while carefully soldering a new connection. I did not have formal training, so I developed techniques that worked for me. Sometimes not knowing the official way to do something helps you see alternative solutions. When Finn finished and returned the repair device, Varix tested it thoroughly. His skepticism transformed into surprised respect. You have done in 1 hour what our specialist said would take 3 days. Thank you, Finn Carter. I will tell others about your skills. More dragons came after that. An engineer brought a malfunctioning environmental suit. A chef needed her food preparation equipment recalibrated. An artist required delicate restoration work on a damaged sculpture. Each repair was different. Each one taught Finn something new about dragon technology and culture. And every single day, Princess Vesa visited. The young princess would arrive mid-morning, usually carrying her birth star orb, which she refused to be without. She would settle on the cushion near Finn's workbench and watch him work with absolute fascination. Although she could not yet speak Galactic Standard, she communicated through chirps, clicks, and expressive body language that Finn was learning to understand. Sometimes she brought him things she found around the palace. A broken toy from the hatchling nursery. A damaged piece of jewelry. Once, she dragged in a malfunctioning cleaning drone that was nearly as large as she was. Finn repaired everything she brought, always explaining his process in simple terms. Through Vesa, Finn met other members of the royal family. Her older brother, Prince Darren, a teenage dragon with crimson scales, visited to check on his sister and stayed to ask questions about human technology. Princess Vesa's clutchmate, a hatchling named Mira with rose gold scales, began joining the daily visits. The two young dragons would sit together, watching Finn work like students attending a masterclass. Palace staff members started bringing personal items that needed repair. Through these interactions, Finn gained insight into dragon daily life. He learned that dragons valued craftsmanship and could spend hours discussing the merits of different construction techniques. Family bonds, especially between clutchmates who hatched from the same group of eggs, were considered sacred. The care and education of hatchlings was a responsibility shared by the entire community, not just parents. In return, Finn demonstrated human problem-solving approaches. When a dragon engineer insisted a device could not be repaired because the correct replacement parts were unavailable, Finn improvised using materials at hand. He combined human and dragon techniques in ways neither species had considered, creating hybrid solutions that worked better than either approach alone. 2 months into his residency, Elder Skorath brought Finn a challenge that would change everything. The Elder Dragon carried something wrapped in protective cloth. He unwrapped it carefully to reveal an artifact that made Finn catch his breath. It was a sculpture about the size of a human head, composed of translucent stone threaded with metallic veins that should have glowed with inner light. Currently, it sat dark and lifeless. "This is the Dawn Keeper," Skorath explained, his ancient voice heavy with sadness. "It was created 4,000 years ago by artisan master Kalara. It has survived wars, natural disasters, and the rise and fall of dynasties. 3 weeks ago, an earthquake damaged the palace foundations. This piece fell and broke. The technique used to create the luminescent bonding matrix was lost 2,000 years ago. I have studied it for months. There is no solution. It cannot be repaired. Finn examined the sculpture with careful hands. Skorath was right. The original creation method was far beyond anything Finn understood. The metallic veins were not simple conductors, but living metal, a substance that responded to light, temperature, and some property Finn could not identify. The bonding matrix that made the metal interact with the stone was completely alien to human engineering. But maybe that was exactly the point. What if we do not repair it the old way? Finn said slowly. What if we create something new that achieves the same result through different methods? Skorath's eyes widened. That would be heresy. The original technique is sacred. The original technique is gone. Finn countered gently. We can honor the artisan's vision by preserving their creation, even if we do it differently than they did. The goal is to make it beautiful and functional again, right? Does it matter how we accomplish that? For a long moment, Skorath was silent. Finally, he nodded. Proceed. Show me what human ingenuity can achieve. Finn worked on the Dawn Keeper for 5 straight days. He barely ate, forgot to sleep, and became so focused that Princess Vesa appointed herself as assistant, bringing him food and water at regular intervals. The solution required combining principles from human engineering with what Finn had learned about dragon technology. He could not recreate the original bonding matrix, but he could build a hybrid system. Using principles of light refraction, electrical conductivity, and what he suspected was a quantum entanglement effect, Finn created new pathways through the sculpture. Instead of trying to match the original technique, he designed something entirely different that achieved the same visual and functional result. On the 5th day, with Elder Skorath, Princess Vesa, and half the palace staff watching from the workshop doorway, Finn made the final connection and activated the sculpture. Nothing happened for several heartbeats that felt like hours. Then light bloomed within the Dawn Keeper. It started as a soft glow at the sculpture's core and spread through the metallic veins like dawn breaking across a landscape. The light pulsed in rhythm with something Finn could not identify, perhaps the ambient energy of Pyralis itself. Colors shifted and flowed, creating patterns that seemed almost alive. The watching dragons made sounds of awe. Princess Vesa chirped joyfully and danced in circles. But Finn watched Elder Skorath. The ancient dragon stared at the restored sculpture with tears running down his scaled face. Slowly, with visible effort, he bowed. Finn had learned enough about dragon culture to know this was extraordinary. Elders did not bow to anyone except royalty, and rarely even then. You have done what I believed impossible, Skorath said, his voice rough with emotion. Not by knowing more than me, but by being willing to see differently. You honored the past while creating something new. This is wisdom I had forgotten could exist. Word of the repair spread through the Crystal Palace like wildfire. By evening, dragons from across the city were arriving to see the Dawn Keeper. By the next day, nobles from other cities were requesting audiences. Within a week, Queen Sarata herself summoned Finn to the throne room. The throne room was vast, its ceiling lost in heights that seemed to touch the sky. The queen sat on a platform of living starstone, her scales shifting between gold and platinum, marked with patterns that denoted her royal lineage. She was magnificent and terrifying in equal measure. Prince Darren, Princess Mira, and Princess Vesa sat near their mother. Vesa waved enthusiastically when she saw Finn, earning a gentle rebuke from her brother. Finn Carter, Queen Sarata's voice resonated through the chamber. You have done more in 3 months than our diplomats achieved in 3 years. You have shown my people that humanity possesses qualities we value deeply: creativity, compassion, and the courage to attempt the impossible. Finn bowed, mimicking the gesture he had seen others use. I only did what felt right, Your Majesty. Exactly, the Queen said. And in doing so, you have convinced me that humanity deserves a place among the elder races. I am announcing a formal alliance between the Dragon Sovereignty and the Human Federation. Cultural exchange programs, technology sharing, mutual defense. Our species will grow stronger together. The throne room erupted in sounds of approval, dragons humming and clicking in harmonious patterns that seemed to shake the very air. Later, standing his workshop with Princess Vesa curled up asleep on a cushion nearby, her birth star orb projecting gentle light, Finn reflected on everything that had happened. He had come to Pyralis terrified and uncertain. He had expected to feel like an outsider forever. Instead, he had found a home, not by trying to become something he was not, but by remaining true to himself, by fixing broken things with patient hands and an open heart. Through the window, twin suns were setting over the crystal spires of Pyralis. Somewhere in the palace, Elder Skorath was teaching young dragons about hybrid engineering techniques. In the city below, the first human students were arriving to study dragon craftsmanship. And in workshops across human space, dragons were beginning to share their ancient knowledge. All because a crying hatchling had walked into a repair shop, and a quiet human had offered kindness without knowing who she was. Finn smiled and returned to his workbench. He had a broken atmospheric regulator to fix before morning. Just another repair job. Just another day. But now, it was a day spent building bridges between worlds. The end.